Hello everyone, welcome to Leave No Doubt, where I'm excited to say that this episode is sponsored by Connection Technologies. I'm pleased to have been joined by Bristol City's Rob Atkinson. Rob, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
I'm glad to have obviously got you, Rob, on the podcast, because I speak to a lot of older pros maybe, or guys coming to the end of the career. Some of the guys are retired, and not often do I get to speak to somebody who's right in the middle of their career. Young guy, 24, super talented, obviously playing at a championship club at the moment with Bristol City. You're going to be all right talking about your game? I'm going to ask you questions where I'm going to have to get you to big yourself up, mate. You're going to be comfortable with that?
Yeah, I will. I'll do my best.
Okay, all right, Rob. To get us started, mate, we do have a lot to get through, even though you are obviously still just a young guy at 24. And something that we were just talking about, obviously, that I ran by you that we were going to discuss, and I would discuss it pretty early, really, because it's actually very interesting that people might see you perform on a match day, and especially over the last 3 or 4 years where you've been exceptional for Oxford. You've played very well for Bristol City. You're exceptional for Eastleigh, where obviously we played with one another there. But before that, people will see online, if they want to go online and have a look at you, they'll see that you were at Fulham, and they'll see that you go from Fulham to Eastleigh, and the perception sometimes of people that don't know you might be that you were a generic academy kid who gets released after a period of time of being involved with a Premier League club, and you find yourself at Eastleigh in the national team, which can be seen as a negative thing, right? I want you to talk to me about what happened there, because that's not the case. That didn't happen. I'm going to tee you up, but you made the decision to leave Fulham because, and I will also add to people listening at home, that Rob's outstanding attribute as a defender, albeit obviously the rest of your game is exceptional, mate, but your one outstanding attribute, if you want to type Rob's name into YouTube, please go and do it, because this guy picks the ball up as a left centre half, and before you know it, is on the edge of the attacking box trying to set someone up for a goal or shoot himself. Your ability to step in and dribble the ball, mate, is the best that I've ever seen, actually. It's incredibly eye-catching. I'm sure you don't need to be told that, but please give us an insight into that period of time that you spent with Fulham, and the moments that led you to end up joining Eastleigh.
Yeah, so one of the biggest misconceptions people have about me at Fulham is that, they sort of developed me and created me. And I think, as you touched upon me being a typical academy product, I couldn't be further from the truth, really. I was there for 2 years when I was 18. So, a lot of, for you to be an academy player, I think you've got to be there for a lot of your career up until that point. And I when I joined, I was straight into the 23s, which is what it was. I think nowadays it's more 21s, but back then it was the 23s, and it was kind of a reserve setup. Like, you weren't really going anywhere straight away. Like you some of us were playing, training with the first team, and then the rest were trying to go out on loan. So it was kind of off the bat, it wasn't sort of the best start. I didn't help myself. I think I wouldn't say it's a regret, but it was very hard for me. It was obviously coming from a non-academy background. I grafted, playing in Sunday league, and just awful standards and awful pitches, and so that was a bit of a shock, and it was very overwhelming. So straight away I was kind of like, I don't like this. And as you probably know, like, if you don't enjoy your football, you don't really play that. Like, you don't want to be there. You just don't want to be there. So you don't enjoy. You don't play as well. And when you don't play as well, people aren't going to notice you. So what ended up happening with me was that I wasn't really going anywhere, and I think that's partly my fault as well for not opening up to not being more positive about the whole experience. But on the flip side, I used that as an opportunity to bounce back. I knew the moment that I was given an opportunity in men's football anywhere, which happened to be at Braintree in 2019, who were at the time in the National League, rock bottom. But I couldn't care less. I just wanted to play men's football and enjoy myself again. And We actually ended up we still got relegated, yeah. But it was actually, I look back on it really positively, and Danny Searle was the manager then, and it was just good to play what I deemed like proper football in front of fans that actually wanted to be there and just watch because they loved the club rather than interested in individuals' development. And it was something at stake every game. Like, you don't really get that with academy football, I felt. And I played 15 games there, played pretty well. Ended up getting injured actually the last day of this. Leighton Orient were coming back up, and that was a big day for them. It was on TV. My first game, who does National League? It's BT, isn't it?
BT do the coverage, yeah.
Yeah. First game on BT, and I just pulled my hamstring like within the first 2 minutes. So that was a bit depressing. But you said that I made the decision to leave Fulham. I think it was more mutual. Like they knew that I wanted to go, just from the way I the way I was, and I'm grateful for the time I had there. I did develop as a player physically. I'd never hit the gym so much in my life until I joined Fulham. Obviously, Premier League grade facilities and that, so I made the most out of that, and made friends, met people. A lot of the players from that squad actually have gone on to do very, very well. There was some very talented players there, and but yeah, as soon as like, I remember having that meeting, a lot of players are really scared about that meeting. Oh, I don't want to get released. I want a contract, and I was just like, please release me. Please, like, I knew it was going to happen, so I was no nervous, and as soon as they told me, I was like, yeah, fair enough. Shook their hands, and then I drove down the A3 like really happy. It was one of the happiest days of my life, really. I was finally free to go and express myself, and it's kind of just a fresh start again.
I'm so excited to welcome to the pod our new sponsors, Connection Technologies, a market leader in business-to-business tools ranging from business mobile, hosted telephony and fixed line services. Head over to their website at www.connection-technologies.co.uk, fill in their web inquiry form and find out how Connection Technologies can help your business. See, Rob, I want to try and break this down. You've given us a great insight there into obviously your thought process, and I know you're a humble guy anyway, and it's going to be probably difficult for you to big yourself up as much as I am, and I'm probably going to sound like a bit of a fanboy. But listen, I want to strip it back to sort of, you leave school, right? And a lot of guys at school, when they leave school, especially now as a 16-year-old, if you're not in that, academy environment where you're doing a scholarship somewhere, that can often be seen as that you're not going to make it, right? That your time is up. You've missed the boat, and obviously that we sit here now knowing that wasn't the case for you. But when you leave school, was it playing professional football still like obviously a huge realistic ambition for you? And how did your life reflect? Because it was at Basingstoke. Obviously, you played for Basingstoke in their first team, and then moved on to Fulham. Like, what was football like for you when you left school, and how much of a realistic ambition was being a professional at that age?
Me and my brother, I've got a twin brother. We both we wanted it, and it was kind of hard. We kind of convinced ourselves that all the players, all the talented players of our age group had already been picked up by scouts, and therefore the scouts didn't think there was anything left, and that's fair enough. But we missed when we lived in France. So when we came back over, this is what I tell myself anyway. I tell myself that all the scouts have picked up all the talent in our age group, and then we come back and we're just playing Sunday League and no one's watching. But even though we weren't in a professional setup, I'd like to say that my dad, he made us step out our comfort zone a lot, and me and my brother, we picked up futsal around the age of I don't know for sure, but it was around the age of 13 maybe, and so we were playing twice at weekends, once on Saturday for a development team, and then once on Sunday for a Sunday league team, and then, you know, on Sunday as well we'd play futsal games, and then in the week we'd obviously have training for those 3 respective teams. But, you know, coming out of, we went to college as well, so we didn't just finish school and then we were actually in further education, which a lot of academy players miss out on, really, that sort of college. So there's those 2 years, and during those 2 years we were playing for our local village team, Nap Hill Football Club, which is in Woking, and just getting frustrated there as well, really, because we were such a successful reserves team. Like, we're winning the league, we're winning cups and everything. Like, we had a really, really good team, and then the first manager, I can't remember. I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but he just wasn't giving us an opportunity, even though, like, we were so good, and that became a real frustration. We ended up, I think I ended up playing only once, and that was like a 5-minute sub appearance, and I just headed the ball once. I think I gave away a foul, and that was it. So then, you know, my dad being my dad, he pushed us again. We decided to join Met Police. So must have been about 17, 18 then, second year of college, for this, like, just to get an opportunity, really. And Met Police were step 4, step 3 at the time. So we went straight into the reserves there, and again, we did really well. We're winning cups and stuff. But again, like, no opportunity arose really in the first team, and it's just what happened. It was kind of testament to my old man. He made us join a team called St Francis Rangers, and it's funny. There's a newspaper article at the time that dubbed them the worst football team, semi-professional team in England, and it just showed, like, how far we were willing to go to just, like, play football, men's football, first team football. We joined them, rock bottom of the league. You know, they conceded over 200 goals. And me and my brother joined. I didn't even start the first game. Imagine that, like, just worst team in England. I sat on the bench and we're getting pummeled 3-0, and I come on, I win a pen, to be fair. But we lose again. But we actually, again, like, I look back at that time with only happiness, because we did get a win, which was their only win, I think. I've got the stats somewhere. And, yeah, just a good experience. Obviously, it's not going to get much worse than that. So at the end of that season, that's when the Basingstoke opportunity came about. Terry Brown, who you work with, he took me and my brother on trial, and he took both of us. And that was, like, the first proper opportunity, really, and first team men's football at a respectable level. And, you know, I did very well, and so did my brother. And that's when the Fulham move came about. That was my journey.
I think that's so incredible, mate. Like, what a great insight for us that I'm sat across the table from this super talented championship player who, from the age of 16 to, you know, mid 18, 19, was travelling around playing for reserve teams, looking for an opportunity that never really came. It just goes to show, I think, that, you know, the overriding message of what you've just given us an insight into is that when you don't give up and you believe in yourself, you can achieve truly amazing things, right? So when you get into, obviously, Fulham setup, then tell me, you touched on being overwhelmed, and you sort of said it was, you know, much different than what you were used to, and you've been involved in these non-league setups. I'm sure anybody listening to this who hears the Basingstokes and the Braintrees, I know that those sort of levels, and it's completely different facility-wise, what's expected of you wise, pressure-wise, everything is an opportunity. And then, you know, for you then to go to Fulham, it's now no longer necessarily an opportunity, but more an expectancy on you to perform to a certain level, right? When you say you're overwhelmed, because this might happen to people, right, who listen to the podcast, you know, this is all about football development, Rob, so somebody's going to go, listening to this, going to go from a non-league environment to a professional environment. You know, you went to a Premier League professional environment, which is obviously, you know, higher than many other people might achieve. But the word overwhelmed, what do you mean by that, and what was it about it that overwhelmed you?
I think it was just the star power. Like, at the time, I was a Fulham fan. So just going there and just seeing all these like big players like Tom Kearney and, you know, Mitrovic and all these guys, and you're just like, wow, like I've gone from Basingstoke to this. And I think I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I let it win. And going back, I wish I'd went with a better mentality. I think that was the difference. I just let it beat me a little bit.
Can you explain that for me a little bit, for the benefit of others? You say, like, when you put too much pressure on yourself, explain that for me, and then explain you let that win.
So, you know, you go into this place where there's Premier League top outstanding players, and therefore, you know, Fulham Academy at the time, it wasn't long ago that they had like that, you know, those breakthrough players like Patrick Roberts, and like there was a lot of pedigree behind these players and the standard of the academy, and you just think, I don't belong here. This is I'm out of my depth here. Like, I've come from Basingstoke, so these players have been here for, you know, some of the players that have been there since they were like 4 or 5. They all know each other, and it's just, I was really nervous, and it's weird. I had a trial period, so it wasn't just you know, like
Turn up and sign,
yeah. So I've obviously done enough to show them that you know, I was worthy of being signed. But it's funny, I remember we played Villa at Craven Cottage, and I remember absolutely hating the game. I just did not enjoy it. I just told my dad I don't want to sign, but in the end I did. Like,
what was it about that game then? Do you think that?
I was at Basingstoke, and I was just running with the ball and like just enjoying myself, and, you know, playing with my brother and my teammates, all men, and, you know, these, when you're in that environment, it's just more positive. Whereas I thought the under 23s environment was more like negative, and people were just having a go at you for no reason, and like just wasn't the same. You know, I went there, I missed that sort of atmosphere almost of non-league, you know, football, playing first team like that. So I think that should have been alarm bells really. But my dad, you know, he seemed to think he was the one that was pushing for the move, and do you know, ultimately I don't really regret not joining. I'm happy that I joined because I got that experience and it made me better. Even though at the time I didn't enjoy it at all, it allowed me to think. It made me mentally stronger, the overall experience of being there.
The probably the outstanding message that I want to get out of this segment of what we're talking to you about, mate, is that you've just described there is, you know, if I was thinking I'm you and I'm describing what I like about football, it's driving out with the ball, obviously, you know, even though you're a centre-back, creating, finding a pass, you know, you're still an outstanding defender and you win most of your headers. But that, especially like being able to step in and dribble, is the most eye-catching thing that I've ever seen of a defender that I have played with in my whole career, Rob. And I mean, like, and don't get me wrong, I've not had a great career. Played at, you know, League One was the best I did. But I've played for 14 years and I have never ever seen anybody else do what you can do, right? So understanding that, and you understanding that that is what you enjoy about football, how much courage do you think that, you know, you're still 24, but as a 19-year-old at Fulham, how much courage did it take for you to speak up about and say, you know what, I don't really enjoy the way that we play here in this 21s or 23s. I don't really like the football that they're asking me to play. I believe it should be played a different way. And not only thinking that, but being courageous enough to follow through with it.
Yeah, well, I didn't have that bravery, but I wish I did. And it would have taken massive. Don't know if you want bollocks,
Yeah, no,
It would have taken
yeah,
massive bollocks to I've gone to. I remember Steve Wigley was in charge. I was terrified of him. Hugh Jennings, terrified. I just went into my shell, and I'd talk to my dad and my family about it. Dad, it's just not fun. My dad's doing his best, trying to push me to ignore what they think, and that was the right advice. But I just didn't have the mental strength to do it. I just wanted to please them and just make sure they were happy.
So you were playing a style of football that you didn't necessarily enjoy, but you thought that the Fulham coaches wanted you to play.
Yeah, well, it's funny because they were happy with me most of the time playing like that, but then they just released me. So obviously it was, ultimately you've got to impress these people. You've got to, show why you're there, and you've got to give it your best really, and, show your ability. Playing it safe isn't really going to get you anywhere, I don't think. Playing within yourself, you need to show people your unique selling point. You need to show these scouts that are watching, you need to show these coaches that are watching what you're about. And it doesn't have to be stepping out with the ball. It can be absolutely anything. Like, it can be your aerial ability, it can be your passing ability, it can be your leadership. It's just whatever you're good at, just show people that you've got it.
So go on then. If you could go back to that time at Fulham, then tell me what sort of things would you do different? Do you think it would look differently if you went back now?
Yeah, that was 6 years ago. I think mentally now I'm in probably one of the best places I've ever been, and that comes down to me realising that it's not just your physical ability or your technical ability. I think the most important ability is your mental ability. And up until very recently, actually, I was just trying to wondering how to better myself, and that's through studying the mind and mental strength, and trying to be as mentally tough as you can. So what was the first question?
If you could go back to your time at Fulham, is there anything that you would do differently?
Yeah, well, I'd just take everything I've learned up until this point and apply it to, the 18-year-old that joined Fulham, and I'd have gone with a more positive, open mind, and not been afraid to make mistakes, because they happen. Everyone makes mistakes, and the most important thing is not making them is not the mistake itself, but how you react to it. And yeah, just applying all these sort of mental tricks that I've learned over the years of playing football, and that would have made me enjoy it a lot more, I think.
I think, mate, when I've listened to all these podcasts back when they get released, not only just because I'd like to add one more view to how many views the podcast gets, but I actually enjoy the guests that I speak to, and I know this is one that I'm going to listen back to, mate, and I'm going to really enjoy, because if anybody was ever shared a changing room with you, they'd know that you're a quiet, humble guy, not necessarily the loudest person in the room, but super intelligent. And incredibly talented. And one of the things, obviously, that we've mentioned a couple of times, me particularly, is your ability to, this eye-catching ability to step out and dribble the ball right as a centre-back. That's not normal. I can't imagine. I've been involved in academies coaching, and it's not something that academy coaches would teach to a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old in an academy. But you obviously, somewhere along the line, built the ability to do that, and started to do it on a match day continuously and successfully. I'm interested to know, my question to you, mate, right now is, young guys, obviously, with outstanding attributes that may not conform to what a usual, say, position might be, like you have. How did that develop? How did that, obviously, that attribute that you've got develop in you? And how, we're talking about having big balls, right? How much, you probably wouldn't say it is, but it is. How bigger balls have you got to have to implement that talent that you've got on a match day where nobody else, and I mean no one else, Rob, is doing it?
Well, it does come very naturally to me. It feels like the natural thing to do. I'm not as gifted as others are at, that big diagonal pass. It seems, it is very popular with, modern day centre-backs, get out their feet and just zing it to the other wing. I've practiced that a lot, and you know, I can do it, but it's just a mental thing. I don't really look for it when I'm on the pitch, and I'm still trying to gain that ability, and I'm working on it. But in terms of stepping up, that comes from me almost holding a grudge that I wasn't a centre mid, and I love playing centre mid, and I love doing that in centre mid. But you know, I just wouldn't stop growing. And when you're, you know, 6'4", 18, 6'4", and left-footed, you're like gold dust. There's not many of you around, and that's probably another reason why I was picked up by Fulham. It wasn't just Fulham at the time. There was clubs up and down the country we were going to, me and my brother, like just trialling for, and all of them always wanted that left-sided centre-back just for aesthetic reasons, probably, for balance reasons. But yeah, the stepping out, it comes from me, you know, wanting to be centre mid, and how do you do that? Well, you just get on the ball and then just run into midfield. But yeah, before that, when I was actually playing centre mid, you know, in my Sunday league days and my development days, I enjoy running with it, and I wish I could sit here and say like how to do it, but honestly, it's just natural.
There, a lot of kids, mate, obviously when they're younger are told, oh, like, what are you outstanding at? So you like imagine like there's a kid in the academy says, oh, like I'm amazing at dribbling, and so does, you know, a coach will tell him, oh, what are you not so good at? Let's put loads of effort into that. I'm interested to know how much focus that you put, you know, in terms of your development, and I say it. Development still, because you're only still 24. You've just given us an insight there into, you know, what you're doing mindset wise, that even you're trying to add still things to your game. But in terms of your development, how much focus do you think that you spent on the things you're good at combined with or instead of the things that you need to work at?
I wouldn't say I really ever focused on something I was bad at particularly. I think it was just the things I enjoyed. That's what I wanted to do, and therefore I did them loads. So stepping out with the ball. My dad thrives off it. So whenever I play, he always asks me, "Oh, did you have a run today, or did you step out with it?" And so that's the main reason why I love training. That is just because, you know, it brings enjoyment for me. When I'm playing and I'm stepping out and, you know, you beat a man, it just feels really, like you can't describe the feeling really of what it's like. It's, yeah.
That's just what satisfies you at a game. I mean, I can imagine you send your dad a text after every game if you ask you if you've stepped out, and he said, yeah, only 20 times today. It wasn't that many.
Yeah, I mean, back in the Eastleigh days and the Basingstoke days, I used to do it all the time. It is a lot harder. You're playing against a lot better players, obviously. No disrespect. I love non-league. I love all the levels I've played at. You know, just with all the analysis as well that goes on, like teams just expect it, and then you've got teams setting traps for you. So it is becoming harder. And you know, I relish that. I'm not scared of that. It's just maybe some games you won't be able to do it as much, and you know, you've got a busy striker that's just waiting for you to do it, and it's just football, isn't it? You just got to rely on, and I think that's what I've added to my game. I've started to enjoy other parts of my game. So the defensive parts, like maybe beforehand, I wouldn't have enjoyed. I mean, I know I'm a defender, but you know, when I'm I don't want to defend. There might be times at Eastleigh where I've gone up the pitch and lost the ball. I'm just jogging back. But I've started to enjoy. You know, just defending, being strong, heading, like anything really, and that takes, you know, there'll be games where in the past, I've not stepped out with it, and then I'd be all depressed because I didn't enjoy that. But now, you know, there's a game where I don't step out. Maybe I don't step out, and I'm just like, I enjoyed the defending today. It was good fun, you know, passing and anything else like communicating. So. I think it's just important that you enjoy your football. I think that's the big thing to take from this.
I think there's a big measure of you as a person, mate, that you know, and your development as a player, that you're able to, you know, adapt to different things, really, because, you know, I can imagine at championship level, there's loads of analysts that are setting up different, like you say, different traps and finding out different ways to unlock oppositions. And if you keep stepping out with the ball, obviously that's, you know, that's going to hurt teams, and so you're going to have much more attention. But let me give you an insight, and to the people listening, let me give you an insight into, you know, from my perspective, when you arrived at Eastleigh in pre-season, you arrived with your brother in pre-season, you had signed and your brother hadn't. And first day is normal in sort of National League clubs. We did the yo-yo test. Your brother won it, and you were quite close to coming out first, right? So, you know, I'm thinking, right, so we've signed the wrong Atkinson. and Jason Bristow, who's the Eastleigh assistant, who knew from Basingstoke, from the time at Basingstoke, I'm saying, Chase, what's Rob like? What kind of centre back is he? He says, just wait. He says, just wait for the pre-season games and you'll find out. Because as you know, like, and I can imagine on a day-to-day basis, in training, in small-sided games, in small possessions, in, you know, defending technical drills, whatever it is, you don't get the opportunity, right, to really showcase your match day ability. And actually, you've just signed a guy yesterday here at Bristol City called Harry Cornick, who I've done one of these with, and that was exactly the same. He joined Bournemouth after a trial period, and training was not his game. But, and by the way, I'm not suggesting that training is not your game, but training was Harry Cornick's. It wasn't his game. However, on a match day or an 11 environment, the guy was just insane. He was just like able to breeze past people, right? So anyway, back to obviously you joining Eastleigh. We started playing these pre-season games. After every pre-season game, I was thinking, Rob was good today. Rob was good again today. He went to Salisbury, I can remember off the top of my head, and he stuck one in the top corner from about 30 yards out. I was thinking, God, Rob's got ability. And then, obviously, you know, the case is sometimes in the National League, you were still a young guy, probably about 20 at the time, and Reader Johnson, who was obviously a big player for us, was starting, right? So Reader gets injured early on in the season. I'm sort of, you know, I've played loads of National League games, and I'm thinking, I wonder how Rob's going to get on in actual league games. Suddenly you start playing, I'm thinking, right, Rob was really good today. Next game, God, Rob's really good.
Scored on my debut, by the way.
Yeah, next game, Rob, that was a header back post, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't actually. It was the left foot. It came off my shin and just went in. It was against Sutton. And do you remember they scored straight after? So it was 1-0.
No, I won't be able to in that much detail, but I can just remember my perception of you building every game, thinking, you know, like think from the first day pre-season, thinking I'm not sure this guy's going to be fit enough, to then thinking, oh my God, we've got like one of the most talented guys the club has ever had, right? How were you able to go into, what do you think it was about you, Rob, that was able to obviously go into that team as a young player and become so important so quickly? And so I could, because I say so important so quickly because you left in the January, you went to Oxford. So what do you think it was about that first, 4 or 5 months at Eastleigh that you managed to deal with so well and managed to obviously move on pretty quickly?
Well, most importantly, it was hunger. I wanted to prove people wrong. Not that they needed proving wrong, but it was just kind of in my head. For some reason, I thought that they didn't think I was good enough or whatever. You know, at Fulham. You mentioned Jason, and there was I could have gone to a few clubs, Aldershot being one of them actually, and I wanted to go. Jason had me at Basingstoke, and I thought that was just fitting, really. You know, just back to square one almost. He knew what my game was about. I think that was a big part of it. And also the gaffer at the time, Ben. He let me, like, he allowed me to enjoy myself. That was massive for me. And the moment like they gave me license, I was like, I'm gonna just smash it, really. You mentioned the yo-yo test. I've never been. It's one of the reasons why I couldn't really cut it as a centre mid. Really, I think I just couldn't. I couldn't move, and although that has got a lot better, I like to say my fitness is a lot better now. And Mike, it's weird. Like twins, you'd think would be the same, but we couldn't be further apart on the spectrum, really, in terms of fitness. He could just run for for ages. That boy.
I remember. I think with the manager Strevs had to tell him to stop at one point, like because he was running that much in a yo-yo test. And actually, you just mentioned Cornick. He's the only guy that I've seen run a yo-yo test out.
Really?
He ran the test out. Yeah, got to the end of the beeps and just finished. Like said, test complete, and he was just stood there ready to run. So he's another guy you're going to enjoy playing against in training.
Yeah, there's a lot of good players here at Bristol City, and every training session you never know who you're going to be up against, and then what drill it's going to be. It's never easy really. But I'm grateful for it. You know, even the boys that I've left, Chrissy left yesterday, and he was a nightmare to deal with in a completely different way. You just couldn't move him. Yeah, so I miss him. But since you were talking about the training as well, that was interesting.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, mate. Maybe specifically about Eastleigh, so you can get into it. Like, at what point did you think? Because you've gone from obviously the Fulham, the 23s, the reserves, where you'd missed the National League. You played for Braintree, so you knew what the National League was like. But in Eastleigh, that Eastleigh season, we were half a decent team at that level. Obviously, I had some good players. But when did you start to become aware that you were not only playing, but playing very well and attracting, a lot of attention?
I'd say it wasn't even during the start of the league. It was in pre-season, just enjoying it. And you meant I've not scored a goal like that. I don't think I ever will.
What, that Salisbury game?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's on YouTube. If it is on YouTube, type in that. Yeah. Because you've
been
been looking for it.
I've definitely looked. Yeah, it's not there. But I remember my first actual game was Barrow away. I think that's when Reader came off, and I come on and actually did really well. I think we lost, but did well. And then we had Sutton at home, scored, and just elation of scoring just boosts your confidence. And then like the whole changing room as well was just such a refreshing, positive atmosphere. Even at Braintree, it was so we're rock bottom and we're just so positive. Obviously, you're always going to have a few that are moaning and negative. That's just who people are. But on the whole, it was just such a good atmosphere, and it just breeds confidence. I think when people believe in you and big you up, what you're doing now on the pod, you're just bigging me up. It's just I just want to get on the ball and run with it. It's just an incredible atmosphere in the changing room, and just feel invincible almost. You just want to keep impressing people, and
I want to fast forward then a little bit, mate. Obviously, because don't get me wrong. Obviously, from having watched your development at Eastleigh, it was pretty rapid. And come January, obviously, I know the guys, Phil Corklin and Brian Howard at Momentum Sports who look after you, and they were getting peppered really in sort of as January was approaching that year, and you signed eventually for Oxford, obviously via somewhere else. And that process, I'm interested to get an insight, mate, into the process of you signing for another club when you've got so much interest from different places. So many teams were probably willing to pay the same amount of money for you. You had a decision to make as to more or less where you wanted to go. What was that like for you? How difficult was it for you to find out or to figure out what the right choice was for you? I know you obviously went to another club before ending up at Oxford for whatever reasons. You don't have to go into loads of detail on that. But was that a challenging little period of time for you? Like how did you feel then? Did it make you feel great that obviously all these teams wanted to sign you?
Yeah, it felt good for once, actually being wanted rather than trying to scavenge around for a club to sign you. So that felt amazing. It didn't really come as a shock, because you boys just kept talking about it and, just saying, oh, yeah, where you going, Rob? It's just, don't know. I've never been in this situation. I don't know what's going on. You were one of the main reasons why I went with Brian, because of who you were, and it was new, that sort of interaction with an agent. I had an agent before, but it wasn't the same. And kind of, you mentioned about that club. It was Peterborough, and that was a weird because I learned something from that. I went there. That was the first medical I'd ever done, and I kind of saw it as more of right. These guys are going to be my physios, so I better tell them what's wrong with me, because then they can treat me and help me out, and maybe give me a program or something. But that ended up backfiring massively, because then they went back to the people upstairs, and they're like, "Oh, you manipulate the deal and try and." I don't know the ins and outs of the finances, but either way.
They try. I mean, they ultimately tried to pay less for you to Eastleigh, because they said, right, Rob's got X, Y, Z going on, and Eastleigh went, "No, you're all right. Like, we've got hundreds of clubs who want to take him. We'll just have him back."
Yeah, yeah, and I remember that drive home from Peterborough. I was a little bit sad, but I kind of knew that would have been the first time I'd had to have moved away from home. I was very lucky up until that point, and even with Oxford, really, that I'd not had to, leave my home. Even like Fulham was up the A3, Eastleigh down the M3. It was all within an hour. I was always happy to do it, and in the end, it worked out for the better, really. And Oxford I went there. Carl Robinson, the manager, he let me know how it was going to go, and I was more than happy. Obviously, I wouldn't come straight into the team, but I'd experienced the boys, like get to know them and train with them, and I think I came straight back on loan. I can't remember. I think I came straight back on loan. I was doing training with them Monday, Tuesday, I think.
And for us, but that was the season that obviously COVID stopped footy, right? And I remember, because this is going to lead me on quite nicely, Rob, to ask about your progression, your sort of development to be able to manage going up levels and dealing with that so well, because eventually, I've said it, or sort of mentioned it already, we sit across the table from me here, and in that full season at Oxford, after obviously signed for them in January, the next full season, you finish the season in the League One Team of the Year, right? So we know here now that you were capable of obviously playing to such high level at that club. Whereas at the time, you signed for Oxford in the January, they send you back to Eastleigh on loan. They say, come and train with us during the week, you can play your match days with Eastleigh, right? And I remember you turning up for, I think we might have lost 4-0 to Harrogate away. And I remember you turned up on the day before the game, obviously, to travel, and you could hardly walk. And I remember saying, Rob, like, what's up? Like, why do you look so tired? He said, I was running yesterday in between small-sided games at Oxford with the manager because they want me to get fitter. So it wasn't like you were going and still focusing on the match days. Your focus had then switched to Oxford are trying to make me fitter, Oxford are trying to develop me. I'm interested to know, and then COVID obviously stopped that season, right? So it wasn't until the next sort of pre-season that you probably got in with Oxford full-time. What do you think it would like? We've touched on your fitness, and I've just seen you walk out the gym, mate, and having played with you, you might be one of the first out of a yo-yo test, but you were never challenged physically in the game, right? You were always able to run until the last minute. You were always able to sprint past people and be strong. So being able to run a yo-yo test isn't really that specific to you, right? I must say that, because sometimes people's perception of people that can't finish yo-yo tests is that they must not be fit. That's not the case. But obviously, Oxford, you went from an Eastleigh environment to an Oxford environment, which was obviously a challenging training environment. You had to do a lot extra. What do you think it was about you in that period of time? Give us an insight into specifically what you were doing that enabled you to go from one of Eastleigh's best players to the best left side centre back in League One.
It was quite daunting at first. Again, maybe not as daunting as going to Fulham from Basingstoke, but you're going from a non-league team to a league team, and this league team were good. Like Oxford were good. They had a very good team at the time, and do you know, if it weren't for COVID, I think we'd have probably got promoted that season. We had Rob Dickey and Elliot Moore and all these Cam Brannigan, all these great players for that level. We were just winning. I think I remember we were winning all the time. Obviously, I wasn't playing, but I was watching and thinking, I don't know if I'm good enough for this. Like, these boys are good. Like, they played Newcastle in the FA Cup and played really well. Actually, it took Sam Maximan really good bit of skill to win them the game. So I think obviously COVID hit, and then most teams at that level just went off and just did nothing. But we had to do the playoffs to determine who got promoted. So we were, on Zoom calls every day. We're in our gardens doing workouts and doing runs and stuff, which just allowed for more bonding. And then eventually it kind of progressed into we would come into the training ground in 2s and then 4s until eventually it was pretty much back to normal. And that day at Wembley was another experience in itself. It's so not so. I think it probably did me a favour, the fact that we didn't go up. I don't know if I'd have gone straight in the team if we were in the champ. Who knows? But Rob Dickey left, and those were some massive shoes to fill. But again, I kind of reminisced on that time at Fulham, and I didn't want that to happen again. So I put my neck on the line, and I knew the people at Oxford knew what I was about this time as well. Whereas at Fulham they didn't. They had no clue what I was about. They just probably some scout gave them a heads up, and we'll have a look at him. And you mentioned earlier that training and games aren't the same. How am I going to show what I'm about in a training? And they loved putting limits on the touches in training. It was at Fulham. It was always 3 touch max. How am I supposed to do anything with 3 touch? Which is fair enough for some drills, but when it's every drill, it gets really annoying. But anyways, I remember we played QPR and Brentford in pre-season, and I knew it was like sink or swim. Like I had to show everyone that I was good enough to play at that level, and thankfully, and we played Palace as well, so it was a tough pre-season. And in all 3 games, I played really well. And then that kind of gave everyone, I like to think it gave everyone reassurance that I was good enough, to play at that level and excel. And funny enough, our first game of the season, I got sent off away at Lincoln. And that's when you need a bit of luck. And fortunately for me, the gaffer was, he defended me in the change room, even though I just got sent off. And then, served the sending off got rescinded, actually, funny enough, which never happens. So that just shows how unlucky I was anyway. And then he put me back in the team, like this unproven. I've never played a league game. Well, apart from that one, I just got sent off, and he put me straight back in. That just shows, when a manager believes in you, that in itself, just him putting me back in the team, gives me bundles of confidence.
So go on then, why do you think you went straight back into the team? What do you think it was about you?
Well, I think it was my performances up until that point, like regardless of the sending off. I actually chucked one in as well, that Lincoln game. I remember I passed it and I think it got cut out, and then they went out and scored. So that was just a bit of a disaster debut. But up until that point, so the pre-season games, I played against championship opponents and proved that I played well in all the games. And I think that in itself was enough to show the gaffer at the time, Carl Robinson, that I was good enough.
So there'll be a lot of people watching this, hopefully, mate, that can not only relate to your story, but can emulate it in a way, like your ability to progress in, we're talking, you've gone from Eastleigh to Bristol City for millions of pounds within 2 seasons. Like, it's sort of Cinderella story stuff, really, when you break it down, mate. And there's only you that's done that, really, when, I know you've been given opportunities by managers and you've been looked after by good people in terms of your agents and stuff, but they're only ever as good as you are, right? So, give us what's the secret, mate, to being able not only to get moves but to excel once you've got
them. I think it's playing without fear and with enjoyment. I think that is massive. You have to enjoy your football, really. There's no point playing football if you're not going to enjoy at least some aspects of it. For me, that was, the ability to step out with the ball. And up until very recently, it has just been that. But now I've, added enjoyment for other means. And enjoyment and self-improvement, really, in all aspects, not just physical and technical, you have to improve your mind as well.
You touch on playing with no fear there, right, mate? And I must admit, I've found that very challenging my whole career to be able to play with no fear. I put a lot of pressure on myself on match days to play well. That's whether I was 18 or now I'm at the age of 32, right? We played, don't know when this podcast will go out, we played Boreham Wood last night, and I was nervous before that game, as I am on every game. Like, so I think nervous and obviously playing with fear. I certainly don't play with fear, but I am obviously nervous and put myself under pressure. Do you think, the reason why I mention this is because I went through the academy environment, right, at a young age, and I lived through every year you get a decision made on you, whether you're in or you're out, or are you going to get a 2-year contract? Are you going to get a scholarship? Are you going to get a pro? I did all that. Whereas your experience at a young age was, I'm going to trial here, and I've not been given an opportunity. I've been on trial there, I've not been given an opportunity. And so your development as a player wasn't only, you know, a sort of culmination of you becoming a good player. It was also like in your mind, what was going on is you were having to get over all these people telling you at the time, like, oh, I'm not necessarily, like, no, you're not for us. No, you're not for us. And you sort of had to really become thick-skinned. So that, you playing with no fear, I'm interested to know, where do you think that has come from? And do you still do that even at, like, you're playing at the highest level that you have done, and let's hope obviously you continue to progress. But what is a lot of people are going to be listening to this thinking like, oh, I'd love to play with no fear. How do you do it?
Well, I'd like to say I've got the answer. I'm just like you. It's natural for yourself to get nervous before these things, and playing without fear is.
Do you think it's different to nerves, fear?
I don't know. I think they could be confused. I think playing without fear is, playing with fear is what I did at Fulham. So I wouldn't step out with the ball because I was scared of what other people would say if I did it and got it wrong. And that is probably the worst mentality you could possibly have as a football player. But yeah, I'd love to sit here and say I'm a mentality monster, but I'm not. I'm still learning. It's something that I want to improve on, really, and it's something that you can improve on if you look in the right places, like this podcast, for instance, just picking out one, listening to them and just hoping that, you're going to learn something. And it's probably the optimum mentality is to be in that sort of state where, you look at the best player, you look at Messi, like it's obvious to everyone that he plays with absolutely no fear, and that's kind of where that's the optimal mental position, really.
They call that the flow state, is in when you're quite unconscious about what you're doing. Everything just seems to flow. And you've actually mentioned a couple of times there, mate, and I say obviously listen to these sort of podcasts, hopefully might be able to add a lot of value into people's careers. You touched on earlier about, your development mentally and how quite recently, obviously at Bristol City, that's quite, been quite important to you. People are going to listen to this podcast, and you've just said that listen to these sort of podcasts is going to give people takeaways. So give us a takeaway, mate. How have you been able to develop your mental side of the game as well as you have done, not just recently, but over the course of your career?
Well, I would say that my biggest improvement mentally has been recently, and that's because after the last international break, I wasn't in the team, and I was in quite a low state of mind. I was going, obviously the World Cup break, so I was away on holiday with my missus, and I was really just really struggling to come to grips with the situation, and not enjoying myself. I'm on holiday, I'm supposed to relax and enjoy. I just couldn't. So I was reading, and I just thought, why can't I read something that will make me a better football player? Like I'm reading this book for enjoyment purposes. So at that point, I just decided to buy some, just any mental books that could help me. It didn't have to be football related. And I read a few, and just listening to this pod, you pick out bits. I was picking bits out from these books, and a common theme from all of them was positivity and enjoyment. So I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, really. If you was going to take anything away, it's crucial that you enjoy what you do, because when you enjoy what you do it well. And also just to be positive with any. I mean, I don't know. It might have been you that said to me once that football's got so many highs and lows. It's got more lows than highs. I think that was you. And if you can't deal with the lows, then you're really going to struggle. So I think that's where positivity comes into it, really. You've got to be positive, like even when you've lost, like you've suffered a crippling loss, like you have to be positive because you've got to go again. You can't sob over it. You've got a game in a few days' time. You've got to go again, and you've got to bring everyone up around you. And I think, that would be my main takeaway.
That's a great advice, mate. I think that was me. But see, is being positive then for you a conscious decision? Like, say for example that you find yourself on holiday after a period of not being in the team, and you made a conscious effort to go out of your way to try and develop mentally in a positive way, rather than just sulk on holiday and think like, this is crap, right? I'm not in the team. It's not my fault. Blah blah blah. You made a conscious effort to be positive. Do you think that's like do you think it's a really important trait that footballers, if they're going to be successful, need to try and adopt?
I mean, I'd love to sit here and, as someone who's been in loads of winning teams, there's players at this club that won the Prem, and just be like, yeah, positivity is the answer. But, with the limited experience I do have, I would stick my neck out and say it's crucial. Like, it's so important. Yeah.
I think, obviously we're talking about the conversation that we had, obviously, years ago, mate, that there are more lows and highs, and actually, probably there's been within the lows a lot of highs for you, really, in the last 4 years from Eastleigh. So maybe I was wrong, maybe I got it wrong, mate. But how were you able to sit here across from me now as a humble guy, still willing to learn, still, you come in to say hello to me earlier, like sweating your nuts off from the gym, and you've asked politely, can I go and have some food to refuel before we get going? You just obviously that will and that desire to progress, mate. Where do you think that burning desire for you comes from? What's getting you out of bed every morning? Because a lot of the time, mate, obviously I speak to guys who reflect on their career. You're in the middle of it. You're a young 24-year-old guy who's got everything ahead of him. What is, when you're waking up in the morning, when you're going to sleep at night, what's the motivation? Like, what are you doing all this for?
I just want to see. I'm just excited to see like where I can go, really. Whether that's being a championship player for the rest of my career, then that's it. Like, but as long as I can tell myself at the end, like, I've given it my all, I've done absolutely everything I can, then I'll be happy. But yeah, I'd love to progress and see how far I could go, whether that's Premier League or whatever with Bristol City, hopefully. But yeah, that's the main motivator, really, just that sort of excitement and not knowing where it could end. It could be anywhere.
So what sort of, what does a sort of normal training day, they're all different, mate, but like what does Rob Atkinson's football lifestyle look like now? What's important to you? What sort of habits do you have that that you do consistently that's allowing you or will allow you to become the best version of yourself?
Well, it's just controlling the controllables, really. So that diet, for instance, making sure that you're eating right, and beforehand I probably wasn't doing that, but it's something that I can control, and therefore I want it to be optimum, really. Training as well, and I want to, every day when I read, I want to take something from the book and apply it, and make sure that I do apply it. There's no point reading the book and then just being, that was a nice book, and then putting it away. If you have to reread it 100 times, like just reread it 100 times to try and get something from it. And I've been trying, recently to enjoy training. And for instance, the other day, maybe a decision doesn't go your way in a small-sided, and I'd lose my head, or maybe I'd make a mistake in a small-sided, you'd lose your head, and then you'd let it affect you for the rest of the day. Whereas, you know, now I'm trying to train my mind to, you know, it's happened. Let go, like it's done. So by the time I'm back in this building from training, it's out of my mind. I'm focusing on the next thing, really.
It's incredibly insightful, mate. Obviously, that you know all the gold dust that you're giving us for a young guy. On the other side, you know, football's not just obviously training and diet. And I know that obviously to be an elite level athlete, which you are, those are super important things which you seem to take a lot of priority on. But things that are part of the game now, say like social media and stuff like that, you've never been interested in doing that. That's not your game. You're not bothered by it at all. What do you think it is about social media that you're just not asked about? That, you know, is that able, do you think, for you to concentrate more on football, or is it a conscious decision that you don't do that sort of stuff?
Well, at first I just couldn't be bothered to set up a profile or do anything really. I thought it was a bit big time. I thought I was so late to the party. Like, so if I did start, I thought it was a bit like big time. And I think, excuse me, social media now. I mean, I am actually on social medias. I'm just anonymous. I don't have a big follow. I haven't got pictures of myself. I just do it so I can look for like news or just anything interesting, really. But it's a big source of procrastinating, and I'm guilty of it myself. I've probably wasted countless hours on my phone.
No, I know you have. Sat on that Clash of Clans game that you used to get on when you first turned up to training.
Yeah, I still play it every now and then. I think I just want to, because it is so addictive, I just kind of want to make the chances of me developing that even further into an addiction like as low as possible. So therefore I minimise my presence on social media. And also it's hard sometimes when, you know, you're a footballer and you play a game and then you just happen to see stuff about the game, and it's not helpful at all for the mind. Even if it's good stuff, it becomes addictive. And I think you just want to kind of limit yourself, limit the time you spend on it, and the time that you could see something negative that will bring you down again. You just want to stay positive, really. So yeah. I
mean, an overriding message of this, mate, is obviously your ability to use that positive mindset to progress. And you know, you've apart from one, I mean, you could call it a backward step, but I don't really see it as that myself personally. When you obviously go from Fulham to Eastleigh, since then you've managed to really, really kick on. And I think that, this lack of social media, there's actually a lot of guys, it's going to kill me, mate, because when this podcast gets released and you're not posting it, then it's probably going to get about 4 views from my social media following. But I think the positives and negatives on social media for me, especially with footballers at a young age who are, you know, don't get me wrong, Rob, look, we're football players and we love to be loved. It's nice to have people say nice things about you, but more often than not at the moment on social media, a lot of people have got negative opinions on people, and it can have a real bad effect. Would your advice be, obviously, for other guys sort of around your age or sort of that, young football player bracket, to stay off social media if they don't want to have this sort of like challenging mental stuff going on?
Yeah, you've got to be very mentally strong to go on Twitter and read stuff about yourself. Sorry. I'm guilty of it in the past, and it's just a very negative trait, I think.
It is, yeah. I actually, a couple of the guys, say like Tom Lockyer, for example, of you'll played against this year at Luton and went obviously to Qatar with the Welsh national team, and he said he started to feel a real benefit on his football when he got off social media, because it's just like, not only can obviously reading stuff about yourself make you feel bad, it doesn't often have an effect where I think it probably would do for you, mate, that you decide, right, you know what, I'm going to prove someone wrong and I'm going to go in the gym, I'm going to train harder. For a lot of people, it sort of makes them feel like, why am I doing this? Like I'm training this hard and I'm not getting any joy. Nobody even thinks I'm any good. It can have a detrimental effect. But I think it's quite refreshing, mate, that you're not on social media. I'm going to ask you to create an account just to release this podcast, but then after that you can get back off. we're almost done, mate. Let me finish. I've got a couple of questions for you. The first being, and I sort of, you don't have to say what I told you, is what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received in your career?
Ooh, I'm not so sure. Can't stop coughing either.
Yeah, I know. You're absolutely ruining this, mate.
Very parched.
We can skip it, mate.
We're going to have to. I can't really think of something that someone's outright told me, really. I'm not the best listener.
What if I flip that question then and said, what's the best piece of advice that you've got for someone else?
Well, it's what I said earlier, really, about the positiveness and enjoyment. I can't really reiterate that enough, because it's helped me enjoy my life a lot more. And, you know, not even just in terms of football, but when I'm out, I'm just more upbeat and positive. I mean, you've been in a change room with me. I'm just, you know, very quiet and just go home. But I like to think I'm a better person for it overall, not even just ability football-wise. If you take football out of it, I'm a better person.
Yeah, you're always a good person, mate. No problem with being quiet. Used to scream at you and you was quiet on the pitch, but now you're not like that anymore. The next one I've got for you, mate, is what, in your opinion, is your best performance ever?
Joe, that one at Solihull against for Eastleigh was like, that was an incredible moment in my life. Maybe not like my best, you know, statistical performance, but like just in terms of, you know, on TV, like.
Did you set both goals up or the second? I think you set the second goal up.
Yeah, the second goal just.
Danny scored, didn't he?
Max gave me the ball and I didn't even do anything really. I beat one guy and then just.
Set Dutchie and he scored.
I meant to pass to Willow and it went to touch and he just curled it in. So yeah, it just shows as well that you need a bit of luck sometimes.
The reason why I ask people that question, mate, is obviously my follow-on is, what do you think like it was about that game that you managed to perform so well? Like, how did you feel about it? Like, what do you think it was during the game that you were able to perform so well? Why do you think it was one of the best performances you've had?
I relished the opportunity, really. Obviously, as I said, on BT against Solihull as well, we were big spenders at the time. So it was a massive game, and I really wanted to show. I was quite early on in the season as well, so I really wanted to show what I was about, really. And I do remember a lot of good things about that game.
Well, something that stands out to me, mate, is obviously throughout your career, you've had obviously big moments where you've played like BT games on telly. You've played playoff, semi-final games, final games, and you always managed to seem like you're able to deal with them so well. What do you think it is about your personality that's able to, you know, not only see a BT Sport game in a National League as an opportunity, but for you to be able to go out and play well and deal with that?
It's funny you mentioned that playoff, because that was probably one of my worst games. And it's one of my biggest regrets, actually. The Blackpool, the first leg against Blackpool was terrible. And that was the COVID season as well, and that they actually let fans in as well. And that was a massive regret, is the fact that I never actually got to play well in front of the Oxford fans, really. And that was a little bit overwhelming as well that day.
What do you think? Let's flip it then. What do you think it might have been about that game that you struggled with?
No, it's it was just a bit of a shock. Obviously, that whole season you just played in front of no one, empty stadiums. And although there was only like 4,000 people there, it felt like there was loads. And I think that really caught me off guard. And when the fans are, you know, as great as they are, they're ultimately a distraction, really. You want to be fully focused on what's happening on the pitch. And I let that sort of atmosphere and that day get to me a little bit. But again, you know, twisting it in a positive light, I've learned from that experience, and I'm better for it now. But I would say that is a regret, yeah.
See, something I had. I'm glad you touched on that, Rob. Actually, because something that I had on my mind that when I was driving down here today, that I wanted to get into with you was that you now play in front of tens of thousands of people all around the country, right? And one of your outstanding attributes is something that not only excites fans, but if it goes wrong, you hear the groans and you hear because it's so different to what's seen normally. I can imagine if for whatever reason it doesn't come off, you hear the groans of a crowd and think, oh, I don't think I want to do that again. But you do. How are you able to deal with now, because we're not talking about Eastleigh appearances, which is, 2,500 people, or at Oxford you had no fans, so you were able to do it, and you probably had your manager asking you to do it again. How are you able to, to continue to take risks like you have? And actually, I've listened to an interview that you've done where you said like there was a period of time last season where you stopped doing that and you suffered for it. But you now obviously play, like I said, in tens of thousands of fans. How are you able to continue doing what you do, even if for whatever reason the noise outside you is difficult to deal with?
Yeah, well, ultimately you've just got to put it to the back of your mind, because it's in the past. Like, as soon as you've done it, there's nothing you can't hop in a time machine and change it. Like, it is what it is, and you've got to forget about it. And the next time you get the ball, you can't afford to be affected by what has happened. We played. Funny enough, I've not really been one to chuck one in, like as in give the ball away and then for them to score. But ever since I've read the book, Swansea at home in the FA Cup, I just passed the ball to, like, just obviously accidentally. I've given this is probably the first time I've ever chucked a goal in properly, like 100% my fault. And I think beforehand, if I hadn't read these books, I'd probably crumbled then. But I put it to the back of my mind straight away, and Cal Naismith, who's at the club obviously, and he's done similar things this season, and his reaction to his mistakes have been absolutely world class. I've never seen anyone bounce back from a mistake like he has. He's just like nothing's happened, and I kind of took inspiration from that as well. And I used making that mistake, although it's not ideal. Obviously, no one wants to make a mistake. I used it as an opportunity to see how well I could bounce back, and for the rest of the game, I played pretty well actually. So yeah, that's. I don't know what the question was at the start. I forgot. That's the story.
It's how to deal with the supporters. But no, your answer was top class, mate. And there's actually loads of stuff in this podcast. I was hoping it would be, mate. It's top drawer. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to be able to take out of this. But I'll ask you one more, mate, just so we can finish, and you can finally go and have a drink. Is you're still a young guy, but what advice would you give to a 16-year-old just left school, Rob Atkinson, on how his professional career is going to go? What sort of advice would you give to a younger version of yourself?
Just keep chopping away, keep going, don't give up. There's always like light at the end of the tunnel, if you know what I mean, in a positive way. So don't give up.
I think, firstly, mate, obviously, to finish, one, thank you for inviting us to the training ground. Obviously, incredible facility, and also if anybody at Bristol City is listening to this, I appreciate you being open enough to allow us to come in. I've not been south of the river many times in my life, mate, but Bristol Rovers fans, I'm sure there won't be many who watch this, but I apologise for being here. The second thing is thank you for giving us such an honest insight into your career so far, mate. And I've just touched on it there. You're still a young guy, and there's lots and lots of exciting days and moments ahead for you. But I think it's super important that on this podcast we don't just speak to people who have played, but people who are playing. And you're certainly, an outstanding player. If anybody gets the opportunity to go and see you or type you in on YouTube, there's some amazing clips on where you are, where you are. But thanks, mate. I really appreciate your time. All the best, mate. Yeah, all the best for the rest of the season, and hopefully Bristol City will continue to go up the league, and you'll be able to end up being the best version of yourself. So thanks, Rob. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me, mate.